Hello, I'm Larry Johnson. Welcome to the latest episode of Countercurrents with Zeinab Saffar. Are you here? We're underway.
Yes.
Listen, thanks for accepting my invitation to sit down and do this, because since we last talked, there have been just a number of very significant and as well as unsettling events. Particularly the fall of Bashar al-Assad and the changes that has brought to the region. Let's start with the current issue of the ceasefire, Israel's threatening to end it this weekend. What's your take? Where do you think we are? Do you think the ceasefire will remain?
Ceasefire where, Larry?
Well, let's start in Lebanon.
In Lebanon. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Larry, for having me. It's a great honor to be on your show. Concerning Lebanon, I believe that we have to focus on both Lebanon and Gaza, because things have been boiling here and there. If you would like to talk about a ceasefire, I don't know if the others understand the meaning of the word ceasefire or agreement in this sense. This agreement that was reached in Lebanon, it was reached with the Lebanese state, with the Lebanese prior caretaking government, and we didn't have a president back then, and mediated by the Americans and the French, right? From our side, from the Lebanese side, from the resistance side, from the people's side, from the states, from the president, from the army, it is holding. The ceasefire is there, intact. There's no kind of moving from one place to the other, or leading to a certain kind of armed confrontation. But from the Israeli side, and Israel is in the lap of the Americans, and particularly in the lap of the current US President Donald Trump. So the Israelis have not stopped their violations. They have never ceased the fire or the hostilities against Lebanon and the people of Lebanon, against particular areas in Lebanon. Just recently, they broke the sound barrier over Beirut and several regions in Lebanon. On one single day, for example, also recently, 14 Israeli raids in the south and in the Beqa and elsewhere. So you can tell here, and they are also entering those front edge homes that they still maneuver and mobilize themselves there, and they booby trap homes and they explode them, leveling all the homes on the ground.
Yeah.
And there is no confrontation. Even the state is not like, we demand also more from Lebanon as a state, as now a government, as a president. Well, we need to see more in this sense. And the Lebanese army has to impose itself more on the region there and try to drive the Israelis out. The Israelis are just, promoting and through their media and then through certain statements, that they are going to maintain at least 5 posts on the front edge, certain kind of villages. But this is an occupation, whether we like it or not. It's an occupation. It's not masked. It's a flagrant, blatant occupation. So how would Lebanon as a whole deal with this thing? Yesterday, just recently, I don't want to go into dates, but the president of Lebanon said or delivered a very firm message that on the 18th of February, the Israelis have to be out of Lebanon. They have to clear Lebanon. So the Israelis retaliated to a certain extent with breaking the sound barrier over Beirut and the south and elsewhere. It was as if a tit for a tat, a message for another message of terror. But however, the Jerusalem Post reported, and also some high diplomatic figures in Lebanon also reported that the Israelis are going to leave. They are not going to stay. But how much would that be applied, or how much are they going to stick to this? We don't know, actually. We still need to wait and see. There is no decisive issue. The Americans are also asking the Israelis to leave Lebanon on the 18th of this month. But we don't know. We are still, trying to see what's going to happen. Lebanese officials, they received firm promises from the U.S. administration that the Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon will be complete and on time. How much this will hold, we don't know. And of course, Larry, that on the 23rd of, I wish you were here, on the 23rd of February, it's going to be the funeral ceremony of the master of all martyrs, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and Sayyid Hashim Safiyuddin, and it's going to be a very, very intense and big gathering of people from not only the Lebanese. Put the Lebanese aside, most of Lebanon is going to take part, but also you have at least, they declared recently, they stated that it's going to be 79 countries, people coming from 79 countries across the globe. And this number is on the increase. It might reach 100 countries. They are just coming to participate in this once in a lifetime event of taking part in the funeral procession of a man as paramount, as big of a martyr, of what we term as a hero.
Right.
Whether you accept or not accept, whether you agree or disagree, this man is a man who fought for his land. He sacrificed himself for his land and for us.
Yeah.
So he's a hero. Again, he was not living in mansions and spending and living this life of extravagance and luxury. He was a man who was modest and humble enough to lead the hearts and the spirits,
right?
Not just to lead arms and armed men, and sacrifice himself for his people and his land and his nation and the whole free people of the world.
Well, in fact, we saw. Despite the way he is often was portrayed in the West as some sort of bloodthirsty terrorist, we saw, in fact, that through even in the aftermath of October 7th and through Israel's subsequent attacks and into Lebanon and attacks against Hezbollah, that he really was a person that counseled peace, and he was not quick to grab the gun, not quick to inflict violence. Which and then he paid the price for trusting, I think, the West.
He just stood on the sideline and watched what's happening in Gaza. But he believed that out of this sense and out of this mode of unified fronts, that it's his duty and our duty as people who believe that when it's an aggression or an occupation, we should all stand together, not only in stances and statements, but also in arms. So this is what happened. And, the former Minister of War, Israeli Minister of War, Galanty, declared that, they were ready to invade Lebanon, to make an aggression against Lebanon on October the 11th of 2023.
Right.
And they talked about, they booby-trapped ICOM V8 apparatuses, at least 20,000 to 25,000 ones, and they were planning to kill or target at least 15,000 personnel of Hezbollah who would be ready on the battle, and they would kill them by exploding those apparatuses. And so it was looming, it was coming, and what we did is we preempted their preemptive strikes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, speaking of, did you have any friends or acquaintances that were either killed or wounded from those pagers?
A lot of people that were friends, a lot of my neighbors, for example, a lot of people we know, a lot of people from the family of from our family in South Lebanon, in Mace Jabal, who are just on the front edge. Just last week, or just a couple of weeks ago, on the first Sunday, when the people were returning to their villages after the end of the 60-day ultimatum, or so-called ceasefire in practice. The cousin of my son, she was martyred. She's 18 years old, and she was returning with her family, and they were moving into their village, into not the village. They were not even getting close to their village, but moving on and she was sniped by an Israeli enemy soldier. So the stories are too much, Larry.
Yeah.
We have a lot of stories to tell. We have a lot of stories to tell about people we didn't know that they were in the resistance, and they sacrificed themselves for us. So it's nothing but stories of honor, stories of dignity, and we ought to continue on the same path. I don't know if you've seen the images of the people who were running, who were with their naked, bare bodies, with their flesh. They were trying to, to liberate a piece of land that belonged to them because of their sense of belonging to this land.
Right.
The army was, they raced the Lebanese army to get into their villages, and they stood in front of the Merkava, and they opened their arms, and they said, "We are here. We have nothing. We are unarmed. This is our land. We're not going to leave. We're staying here. So if you need anything, just leave, because you are the enemy. You are the aggressors, blah, 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 blah." So these things and these actions by the people of the resistance, that's why we call them the people of the resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Larry, simply to put it that, who are those people? They are the sisters, they are the mothers, they are the daughters, they are the families of those very same resistance fighters that people from abroad and across the seas, they term them as so-called terrorists.
Right.
They are people defending their land. They are people, they are the owners of the land. So, whatever.
Well, I'm trying to put, help put a, if you will, a human face on all of this,
Mm-hmm.
because you can read a statistic that this person was killed without understanding who that person
Mm-hmm.
was. So actually, talk about that 18-year-old girl, because
Mm-hmm.
she was an unarmed civilian.
Of course, all of the people who
she wasn't carrying a weapon. She didn't represent a threat.
Of course, she was a student. She was a beautiful lady, and she was just, life is open for her.
Right.
But I know that you have seen the scenes of the people who were rushing there, not knowing, or perhaps knowing, that they are not going to see only the remains and the rubble and the debris of their homes. But they insisted on going
Mm-hmm.
there. They took their food with them. They took their hubble bubbles with them, the water pipes.
Right.
They made certain kind of gatherings. It was, this day, the one who didn't participate in this day, they have lost a lot, because what's the meaning of liberation? What's the meaning of resistance? What's the meaning of honor, of dignity, of belonging, of, there is no place for defeat in the hearts of those people. So when you read about, Lebanon was defeated and Hezbollah was defeated and the resistance, and they are gone forever with the wind, those people are the people who actually liberated, not the army, not any other side. Those people, they went, as I told you, with their
Oops, we froze up there for a second.
will be martyrs, and we understand what's the meaning of martyrdom. So the popular march to South Lebanon is actually, as I sent to you, it's a milestone.
Mm-hmm.
And the political and the security implications of this milestone, this defining moment and its achievements, they establish strategic results. And the first result of the popular march, among them this young lady, is preventing the disappearance and the melting of the villages, the front edge villages, right, and imposing this matter as an urgent issue that has to have priority to the state and also to the mediators, the Americans and the French. This matter invalidated the hypothesis of imposing a security belt. This is not something that we in Lebanon would accept. We're not going back to 1982.
Right.
We're not going back to the year to before the year 2000 by keeping the front villages in southern Lebanon vacant of residents, as the Israeli leaders have mouthed and strongly talked about. So the enemies of the resistance and Lebanon, they were closely monitoring what was happening on that particular day. And the indicators that revealed the trends of the resistance movement has, sent them a very, very clear, loud and clear message, especially, as I said before, that in the aftermath of the aggressive and massive and brutal destructive war against Lebanon and the severe blows that the resistance sustained, notably the martyrdom of Hezbollah Secretary General Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and the then Secretary General who was also assassinated, Sayyid Hashim Safiyuddin. However, the popular march scattered many illusions in this context and proved that this environment is still committed to the resistance as a doctrine, as a spirit, as a path, as a choice. So it is still ready. This environment, the Southerners, among others too, they are still ready to make more sacrifices, unaffected by the political media campaigns and all the hateful, poisonous, aggressive soft war that targeted and still targets the awareness and the will of this environment. So they have proven through their initiative that, of course, this initiative, it has confused the estimates and the calculations, and that they have dedicated their effective presence in confronting any schemes, any machinations related to the future of the border villages. So it has become clear, Larry, that there will be no revival for Lebanon except through all its components. What do we mean by the components? The Shia, the Muslim Shia, to whom, many people are saying that some voiced out and said, let's finish the Shia in Lebanon.
Yeah.
And also the regions, mainly South Lebanon. There cannot be a revival for Lebanon without South Lebanon. So the resistance society has imposed itself as a fundamental pillar in the equation. And if the messages of those people, the people of the resistance, are not loud and clear and enough to dispel the perceptions on which the adversaries, whether inside Lebanon and the enemies outside, build their options and build their dreams and build their chimeras, then perhaps those people, those adversaries and those enemies are going to find themselves facing more escalation and more escalatory steps.
Would it be true to say that were it not for the Israeli occupiers, Hezbollah never would have existed?
Hezbollah, excuse me?
It never would have existed. There wouldn't have been a need for Hezbollah.
That's what we have always underscored, that if there is, why do people resist, Larry? Why do people pay the price of, not living a normal life? sacrificing their people from their family, their son, their fathers, their husbands. Why? Is it only just like we people like to see our family die?
Right.
No, it's because, somebody has to stand up in face of injustice, persecution, oppression, occupation. This is humanity. This is a human aspect. You tend always to try and throw a human color and aspect into everything. And this is purely human case. Like, for example, we sit them down and ask, many people might argue that why have we sacrificed ourselves for Gaza and for the people of Gaza? No, we have been sacrificing ourselves for a noble cause, for justice.
Right.
When President Trump talked about taking over Gaza, we didn't hear anything from Netanyahu. Because those people, they don't belong to the land.
Yes.
They don't care about the land. They don't care about anybody taking, as long as we are in good terms. We are on good terms with this particular person. And because we are implementing the long shot, dream of having a greater Israel and so on and so forth. And of course, President Trump is perhaps on the same page with us. So we don't mind if he takes on Gaza and then he makes it the other or the forthcoming Riviera of the Middle East and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and a perverted form.
And we will talk.
Yes. Trying to turn it into a Las Vegas.
Of course.
Which is, what disturbed me with
because there is a lot of money here in the region, so let's make it a Las Vegas and try to take all the money.
Yes, there's trying to help. One of the reasons I do, I do this podcast. It reaches primarily folks in the United States, but it also goes around the world. But just to help people get an appreciation to identify with the suffering that's being inflicted upon, particularly the women and the children, but as well as the men. I mean, it is, the irony here is that many of the Jews who came in to occupy Israel and Palestine did so in the aftermath of a Holocaust in which they lost family members. So they knew the pain of losing a mother or losing a child or losing a brother or a sister. And yet you would think that people with that as their experience would be inclined to be more merciful, more generous, more caring. And in fact, what we've seen is that they become as brutal in many aspects as what the Nazis did to them. Only they've been inflicting it upon the people of Lebanon and the Palestinians in the West Bank and the Palestinians in Gaza. And it's just, you step back and wonder how, because you're a mother as well, how do you put up with this pain?
Yes. The introduction was very important in the sense that, well, if you are people who have suffered, then why are you inflicting suffering and injustices on others? The whole issue of this injustice and oppression and aggression and whatever is that because they don't have a sense of belonging to this land. They don't belong to this land. Yeah. And they have been since 1948, since the inception of the Israeli entity, they have been in a state of belligerence and war and being unaccepted by the people of the land, by the neighbors of the people of the land. So that's why they have been in a continuous state of war, and they are not going to live in peace until they realize the fact that they don't belong to this land. So this is very important to talk about, in this sense that, yes, we cannot imagine, Larry, the simplest thing. You live in a home which has a garden, and then somebody comes and takes over the garden. And then they come and take over your home. And then they want to kick you out and say you don't have anything that belongs to you. And then they tell the others, well, Larry, he sold us his home and his estate, and that's why we took it. They sold their home, so why don't we take it over? Yeah. But the whole argument is baseless, because when you look at those magnificent people of Gaza, when you look at those who have been under continuous, daily, on the hour attacks for 15 consecutive months, the longest war in the region, Larry, against those people, killing who? Killing women, children, and the elderly. And then they come at the end with the ceasefire and they say that, well, this ceasefire will hold and the deal will be a good deal. We want, I believe also President Trump, he talked about that, well, Hamas has to evacuate Gaza and they have to go into another country and they have to submit their arms and so on and so forth. This is very hilarious, So the Hamas fighters are going to come out and say, hey, we are Hamas fighters. You can take us anywhere you like, and we'll just, finish all this. Well, who are they talking to? Who are they trying to bluff? This can never happen. Those people, it's their land. How can I tell you leave your land and I want to take over? So whatever President Trump was talking about, these statements are just, that we will build safe communities for Palestinians away from Gaza. Why do you want to take the Palestinians away from their home in Gaza? And they will not return to the Strip. And this is another argument that if you want to help me, you would take me away. Okay, when you build my area and my land, why don't I have the? Why don't I, just return to my land after it's built? And he said that no, the Palestinians will not return to the Strip. So the illegal statement of U.S. President Donald Trump calling for the displacement of the people of Gaza. Actually, Larry, they were not the first in the history of the Strip. That very spot whose people were able to thwart all the plans to displace and uproot them. There have been many projects. In 1953, there was the Sinai Displacement Project. And here I'm talking about a certain timeline. Mm-hmm. And this project was proposed in cooperation, of course, between the Egyptian government and the UNRWA, the International Relief Agency, to settle at least between 10,000 and 12,000 refugee families in northwestern Sinai. So the goal was to reduce the number of refugees in Gaza by 25% within 5 years. And the project, of course, failed due to the popular and political rejection. Then in 1968 came the plan of the State Department and Congress. This plan proposed transferring Palestinians from Gaza to the West Bank and then to Jordan and other Arab countries. Also, the U.S. Congress discussed the plan to displace 200,000 Palestinians, at least 200,000 Palestinians, to countries such as West Germany, New Zealand, and Argentina. So they also failed. It did not succeed. The people refused. Then in 1970 came the Arish project, led by Ariel Sharon back then, who was the commander of the southern region, the Israeli army. Hundreds of families were transferred from Gaza to Arish in Sinai. And the plan aimed also to drain to empty Gaza of its population and reduce their number from 400,000 to 100,000. Today, it's 1.8 million people in Gaza.
Yeah.
So financial initiatives also were offered in this sense to those wishing to leave. They were trying to allure them into leaving, but also the project failed. Then in the year 2000, the Giora Island project and Island presented this plan to establish a Palestinian state in Sinai and try to cut off around 720 square kilometers from Gaza and, merge it into Sinai to expand it. In return, the Palestinians, they would give up part of the West Bank to Israel. Egypt, of course, and this is very delicate here, Egypt categorically rejected the plan, as they are rejecting the plans today. And the project failed due to the outbreak of the Al-Aqsa Intifada. Mm-hmm. Then in 2004 came another project which proposed establishing an alternative homeland for the Palestinians in Sinai, including a seaport and a large city. Also, this project failed due to the Israeli, of course, withdrawal from Gaza and imposing a siege, which made Gaza live in a prison, in an open-air prison since then. And then, when President Trump's first term came to office, they made in 2018 the deal of the century in the wake of the so-called Abraham Accords and so on and so forth. As part of this deal, the Trump administration proposed settling Palestinians outside their lands with economic incentives. This deal also was rejected by the Palestinians, number one, and two, by the Arab countries, especially Egypt and Jordan. So Egypt in the south and Jordan from the east, due to also security and political concerns. In the wake of the war of 2023, also the displacement of Palestinians with the outbreak of the war, these calls for their displacement also returned also to talk about displacing the Palestinians from Gaza to Egypt and Jordan. And the so-called generals plan emerged with the occupation trying to implement by trying as much as they can to exterminate as much as they can areas in North Gaza. And we have seen that, how much they try to devastate everything in North Gaza to make it uninhabitable. Okay? The mastermind of this general's plan, admitted at the end of the day its failure in face of the steadfastness and the resilience of the people of Gaza. And today, also Trump's proposals, blatant proposals, who, when he brazenly resurfaced the idea of expelling the Gazans to Egypt and Jordan, considering that Gaza has become not a good place to live in, not a safe place to live in.
Right.
So these calls face resounding also rejection from the Gazans, from our countries, and more than ever from the international community, with emphasis on rejecting any sort of forced demographic change. So we can see that the Palestinians, the number one, reason for the failure of displacing the Palestinians and uprooting them from Gaza is first and foremost, the Palestinian rejection, their steadfastness, and their clinging and adherence to the land. Plus, of course, today also we hear the voices of the Arab peoples, the Arab and international peoples. And of course, today we hear also the voices of some regimes after Netanyahu talked about making Palestine and moving Palestine to Saudi Arabia. And this was, a very triggering statement that has moved the Saudis in this sense.
Well, I was going to ask, it would seem that Donald Trump's, let's call it a proposal, his plan is a plan with no plan, no money, no people on the ground. It's magically supposed to happen. But it seems to have evoked a level of outrage and unity within both the Arab and the Muslim world that is it unprecedented, or has this happened before in your view?
It's happened over certain periods of time, but to a certain extent, it's unprecedented in the terms of, vocalizing and saying out loud to the Saudis that, okay, if you are against displacement of the Palestinians, why don't you take the Palestinians and give them a land or make Palestine in Saudi Arabia? You have lots of land that is not used. So why don't you take them? And this, triggered a very big reaction from the Saudis and from other Arab countries who stood by Saudi Arabia. And also all the people who are adversaries of Saudi Arabia. They say today that we are standing by the side of the Saudis because this is not fair. And the Palestinians, number one, should stay and stick to their land. And number two, not any Arab country should be attacked in the sense that, well, if you don't want them to be displaced, then you have to pay the price for that. And this is what's happening. We talked about President Trump being a broker or an investor or a businessman who just ups the ante, and then he tries to make you busy with it, and then he negotiates on certain specific lower terms, and then he gets what he wants at the end of the day. And then he says, well, this is not something to be resolved easily, so we leave it on the shelf. Because he knows, of course, because of his advisors know that displacing the Palestinians in this manner will lead to widespread, rampant regional unrest. Oh,
most definitely. I can't imagine King Abdullah of Jordan or al-Sisi, General al-Sisi in Egypt surviving. I don't think they would remain in power if they acquiesce to something like this.
You know Steve Bannon?
Yes.
Of course. And he was a former advisor of President Trump. And this was his method of, flood the zone. So try as much as you can to flood the zone with certain kind of laws, actions, because the media is made up of stupid people, as he said, quote unquote. They can only focus on one thing. So we have to flood with a torrent of sensational news, and they will lose control of what is really important. And, he said that bang, 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 and they will not recover. Yeah. And this is what's actually happening. To divert the attention from what is happening inside the country, inside Washington. I wish you can tell me what's happening inside Washington today, these days.
I tell you what,
changes on the federal level, on the CIA, on cutting budgets, tariffs. What's the only country in the world that is not under the tariffs targeting of President Donald Trump?
Who?
Israel,
yeah.
Israel.
Yeah.
Canada is targeted. China is targeted. Europe is targeted. All countries. Iran is under more sanctions. Russia is threatened with more sanctions. It's all about sanctions and tariffs, increasing the tariffs.
So. Yeah, you're correct. Except for Israel.
Except for Israel.
What has happened to the political situation in Lebanon in the wake of the fall of Bashar al-Assad and the rise of this ISIS-backed crew with Jilani? Has it exacerbated fissures, or has it brought some degree of unity, or what's your assessment?
Unity in the sense of what?
Well, I mean, is it erased? Because in the past there have been these fissures within Lebanese society. And
of course,
Is this?
There are pictures and many of people from various strands inside Lebanon. They were happy and dancing in the streets because Gilani has become president, has become, the governor first, and now he's the president, the interim president of Syria. Syria is a very important country. It's a vital country. It's a strategic country. It's a country which is full of resources, very important resources, and which US President Trump talks and said, we wanted the oil, we wanted to protect the oil, we took the oil, we controlled the oil, and he said it like 19 times in in 25 seconds.
Right.
The oil, the oil, the oil. It was all about the oil, it seems, not the people, not, trying to liberate the people from their ruler, however they look at him. But the issue is now they started to increase their clamp on the northeastern part of Lebanon. And in Lebanon and between Lebanon and Syria, particularly the border villages, there are certain Lebanese who live in villages that they have the Lebanese nationality, but those villages are considered part of Syria.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like that those villages, they have people from the side of, from the Shia, the Muslim Shia, and they have been targeted by certain kind of gangs and people who belong to the HTS of Gilani, and whom is called Ahmad al-Shara now. And they have been targeted, and many people were killed, and there was an exchange of fire, and then the Lebanese army, they interfered, and then the Lebanese army, the president, he called, the Lebanese president, General Aoun, he called these kind of, that is happening, the confrontations or certain clashes taking place between people on both sides. Those who were fighting, it wasn't Hezbollah. They tried to show it as Hezbollah was fighting over there.
Right,
no, it
right.
was Hezbollah, but it was the clans, the people of those villages. In the northeastern part of Lebanon, we have Ashair, or clans, big clans, and they rule themselves in a certain sense. It's a clan mode of governance and type of living. So they decided to protect themselves with their own arms, with their own hands. And this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So some talk about, Israel is from the south, and those gangs, those mercenary gangs.
Yes. Yeah.
Not Syrian.
Right.
Not,
right. No, they're foreigners.
Foreigners, and they want to clamp on the northeastern and the south, and they try to encircle the Shia or the Hezbollah or the Shia, the environment or the people of the resistance from both sides, and try to strangle them. These might be one of the scenarios that they're being, because if you just want to know how did this Gilani come to power, how did this Ahmad al-Shara come to power without even fighting?
Right.
Just Assad left, and then without any kind of fighting or resistance, and then Israel jumped in and devastated all the military bases and arms that the Syrians had, and now Israel occupies part of Syria, the southern part, the Golan, and all down through the way. So we know that the scenario is to hold a tight clamp on Lebanon. The situation is very delicate. It's not easy. We have a lot of challenges, and we have also still 1.5 million, even more, Syrians who are displaced in Lebanon. They didn't return with the ousting of Assad. So what are they still doing in Lebanon? And some are saying to them, well, Lebanon is part of Syria, so you don't have to leave. You're not foreigners over there. You're not refugees. You're not displaced. This is your land. So some people are talking in this sense.
Mhm.
I don't know when it's going to explode and how much big the explosion is going to be.
The Syrians that have sought refuge in Lebanon,
Mhm.
are they Alawite? Are they Shia? Are they Sunni? Are they Christian? Or is there any way to categorize them?
In the wake of the ousting of Assad, we have at least 30,000 Syrians who are Shia and a very small swathe of, no, not Alawites, but most of them are Shia who came to the eastern part of Lebanon,
Mhm.
who fled being killed and assassinated and slaughtered there.
Right.
But the other Syrians who came in the wake of the war on Syria starting in 2011, most of them were people who came from the capital and certain cities and towns and villages and the countryside of Syria. Most of them are Sunnis, and they are a mixture of everything, and Kurds, some of them. They came and they settled here, and they were welcomed with open arms, and they are still welcomed here. But people are voicing other concerns that some of them are armed and that they are being used by the new governance in Syria for certain particular aims. And this is what raises a red flag here, that we welcomed you with open arms, not to be taken over by you.
Mm-hmm. One of the curious things, again, I wish I could have captured this expert that was on television the other day.
Yes, who?
Because he was talking about, the Shia and the Sunni,
Mhm.
and but his bottom line was what a great threat Iran and the Shia represent for terrorism. And it's like, I want to grab him and shake him and say, can you at least read the statistics? Because, the history really over even the last, 10, 15 years has been one where both Iran and the Shia have been fighting against the Salafist, these Sunni extremists. I don't know that there's a better term to describe them, but they are so intolerant.
I don't like to call them Sunni extremists. I like to call them Muslim extremists, the same way there are Christian extremists, the same way there are Jewish extremists, Zionists. Each one of them, you have crusaders, you have Zionists, you have Salafists or Takfiris. Takfiris means that I'm on the right path and the others are all infidels.
Right.
No matter what. So, yes, it has been, and it is still always a great challenge, Larry. Not only for Muslims, but also for everyone, because those people in their mentality, whether Zionists, whether crusaders, whether extreme Salafists or Wahhabis, they don't accept the other.
Well, that's right. It is the intolerance.
Yes,
and you see the same thing exhibited among these, particularly these Zionist settlers. They're just, they don't even consider other Jews as Jews.
Exactly. Falasha, for example, those who come from Ethiopia and whatever, they don't they don't use their blood in case of an emergency operation, whatever. They believe that their blood is dirty or is not so pure as their blood. So this is racism.
Yeah.
This is also internal, being an internally, not just an apartheid state, but also internally you are being racist in the way you deal with others.
If we could make you queen for the day, or maybe I'd appoint you as permanent queen, but what can people outside of Lebanon do to help support the Lebanese people and to help promote peace as opposed to war? Are there any practical steps, or are we looking at just hoping and praying?
Well, Larry, we have, or you as Americans, and as I said before, that I have nothing against the Americans. I love actually the Americans. I have a lot of American friends. I have a lot of American Jewish friends, for example. We treat each other, we deal with each other on a pure humanistic level. They listen to me and I listen to them. And this is very important, to listen to each other,
Yes.
to understand each other. That's why it's very important for you as Americans, at least if you are close to one of the advisors of the US President Trump, or the people who are in charge, that, well, he shouldn't be listening to whoever stovepipes in his ear. He should learn more about the region and its people, and why do the people die, and we call that martyrdom, and we are happy that, you know, my neighbor is a woman who has 5 sons. 4 sons are martyrs.
Oh boy. Yeah.
4 sons who are married. Imagine. Yani their children have become orphans. 4 sons are martyred. And when you go and want to cry, when you hold her, she says, it's okay. They are in the hands of God. So is this woman brainwashed to that extent? You know, she lost 1 son. We said, it's okay. She's brainwashed. But she knows she lost 4 sons, for God's sake.
Yeah.
What kind of brainwash is that?
Yeah. No,
So
it reflects a deep religious faith.
This is a doctrine, a faith, a conviction, a very important way of thinking. This is a spirit, Larry. You should understand the spirit. And this is what, the president. But of course, here we have to follow the money, and who is also responsible for the campaigns and the presidential campaigns. And, Miriam Adelson's name is always there. And you know how she hates the Palestinians, and she believes that they don't have the right to exist, or they shouldn't even exist. It's as if they are insects. We can step on, we can kill them, and then we are finished with them. But this steadfastness of the Palestinians, of the Lebanese, and the way they are clinging to their land is a magnificent act of honor and humanity.
Yeah, the resilience, particularly exhibited by the Palestinian people in Gaza a few weeks back when they were marching north into rubble.
Exactly. The same way the people of South Lebanon, they went to their villages despite of the fact the Israelis were shooting at them, and alone they went there to the rubble, to the debris.
Is there any country other than the United States, let's say Russia, China, that you think could play a role in helping, rein in Israel and bring about a genuine peace to the region? Or is this going to have to be solved internally to the region?
Until now, we have seen only statements coming from today from the Chinese. They said they don't accept the coercive demographic change of Gaza and displacing the Palestinians, and they shouldn't be coerced into leaving their homeland. A statement is a statement. It's good. It's good to have. It's a stance. It's a political stance. It's a diplomatic stance. But also we need to see some more actions, because those people, they need help. That's why the deal, Hamas came out, Abu Ubaidah, and he said that the deal is frozen because Israel did not abide by the agreement deal, that no aid, no shelters, no makeshift homes, no sense of aid for the hospitals, nothing for humanity, for sake. For the love of God, why can't you let these things come in to help the people at least? They broke their promises, and then their statements came out. So they decided that Hamas, they stuck to the articles of the ceasefire agreement, and but the Israelis, as usual, they don't abide by any agreement and any rules. So no one stood by the people of Gaza. When you stand by the people of Gaza, it's not only by statements, but by real action. And this is what, the resistance in Lebanon did back in October 8th of 2023.
Right.
They stood there, and they stood there in trying to make the Iron Dome, the David Sling, busy with the missiles and the drones coming from our side, and at least 3 or 30,000, at least between 20,000 or 30,000 Israelis from the army, Israeli army personnel were driven into the northern front. So you can see that this is action that the Palestinians actually need. And they need humanistic help. They need aid.
Yes,
They
yes.
need money, construction, to reconstruct everything that was devastated by the Israelis. And not to tell them that, well, leave your land, we will take your land, and I'm going to give a bunch or a part of it to others. I'm going to sell it. It's as if, President Trump, the people as, pieces of checkers and chess, and he moves them here and there, and then this is not fair.
Yeah.
There. It's not fair.
Well, listen, I am so appreciative of you taking this time to have this conversation. It's just, it's good to.
I'm so happy to join you always.
I wish we had happier things to talk about, but
Yes.
you bring a cheerful optimism to a dark world. So you're sort of your own beacon of light. You're a person of light, and I appreciate you for sharing that today.
I'm sorry, the line broke.
Oh, yeah, I was saying, you bring a light to this dark subject, and so you are a person of light, and I appreciate what you are able to do to illuminate.
Inshallah, hopefully. Right. Thank you very much, Larry, for everything. Thank you for all the great work you do, and thank you for bringing.
Did you get my video?
Sorry.
Did you get the video I sent you?
Which one?
The one you asked for, the 1 minute commentary.
Yes, I got it. It's excellent. Yes,
okay, good.
We're working on it. Thank you very much. I wish you were here.
The situation in Lebanon and in Gaza and in the West Bank remains precarious, and we will continue to monitor it and comment and look for solutions. I thank you for watching this episode of Countercurrents. Please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.